And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, January 24th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Matt Belman. We're brought to you by Sleeper. And we have an 8-game slate ahead of us. And it's kind of a fun one. I like the balance. I like the games. I would prefer to have the final 2 games be a little earlier, but I'll take what I can get. And we're going to get Terry Rozier today, something that I vehemently did not expect earlier today. Didn't think Kyle Lowry was going to get that physical finish that quickly, but apparently he did. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. We got the Mikal Bridges game last night on a day where I did not have enough Mikal Bridges.
Sounds like a likely story over here too. That is just the nature of DFS, I guess. Talked about couple guys that we like that were getting leverage. I did not play Mikal Bridges. Of course, he had a nuts game, but on to today, I guess, right?
Yep. 36 real points yesterday for Mikal Bridges, which it's a pretty decent day out of him, you know? And then we just... Do you realize that he was the highest individual scorer yesterday in terms of real points?
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah, that one stings. You like to be there on the days where you talk about him as a nice value play, but alas, here we are. And we're here to talk some basketball, and we're starting it off with a real doozy. It's gross. I am very, very happy that I live in the state of North Carolina, and this game is blacked out for me, because I would have to be blacked out to put this on purpose. The Charlotte Hornets are 3-point underdogs in Detroit, 231 total. Kyle Lowry not making his debut for the Hornets and will never make his debut for the Hornets. No. So we've got a relatively thin team for Charlotte today in the sense that we don't have Terry Rozier here any longer. Gordon Hayward is out. We do have Nick Richards as probable now. Cody Martin is questionable. That one actually does matter a bit, considering Cody Martin is the highest owned guy on Charlotte at this moment. We also have 17% ownership coming into Miles Bridges. I prefer one other guy for the Hornets, so I'm just going to throw it to you to start. What do you see here for the Hornets in a matchup that is oddly good for them?
Yeah, this game sucks from a real life perspective, but from a DFS perspective, it's a potential gold mine. Now, doesn't have to work out that way, but I mean, I think LaMelo Ball might be my favorite play on the slate. I know he's priced up a little bit from what he had been, but he should be. He was too cheap. No Rozier certainly does not hurt LaMelo. Great spot. Love that he's only pulling 7% ownership, 13% chance of being optimal. I love LaMelo here. I'll definitely spend up to be contrarian with him. I hope his ownership stays that low. I also really, really like Miles Bridges. Almost said Mikal Bridges, but Miles Bridges. Another guy not getting a ton of ownership. Priced really, really fair now with Rozier gone at 7,600. He's been good. I like him quite a bit. And I also have interest in Brandon Miller. Don't really want to pay that price tag for him, but he seems to have gotten better quickly. And no Rozier helps him because Rozier eats a lot of usage. So I like Charlotte a lot. The order of that I said them is the order of the order in which I want to play them. So LaMelo's a priority for me. Bridges is close, and then Miller's a wild card. How do you see it?
Miles Bridges is the guy that I have the most exposure to from the Hornets. I'm basically 2xing him. He's 17% owned. I have 30, 7,600, stepping into a bigger role with no Terry Rozier. So you and I are in complete agreement there. LaMelo Ball is the guy that I have 22% of. That's the second most of anybody I have on the Hornets. At 7% ownership, that looks good. I can say that he is not more than 7% owned at other sites, which I think is kind of interesting because I felt like that number was going to come up throughout the day. And maybe we do see it come up a little bit, but it doesn't appear that it's going to come up as much as I think it should. And that works for me. I would rather just play more of LaMelo Ball. I think the minutes are going to be there. The matchup is certainly there. Hard to not like it. And then, you know, if Cody Martin is in the starting lineup, I understand why he's getting some love. 4,300, small forward eligible. They don't have a lot of other options. If he can just soak up those minutes, he becomes a value play today. I do think he's over-owned. We have him under-owned, oddly enough. 24.5% optimal, 18% ownership for right now. I'm nervous to go that heavy on Cody Martin. I don't know if that's just maybe everybody's accidentally clicking Cody when Caleb is also on the same slate. One of those things, just finding the wrong Martin. But he's like definitely to me the third best option from the Hornets in terms of price and availability. The position really helps. I like the shout for Brandon Miller. The price tag is tricky. You're going to be contrarian by getting to him. And in this matchup, I don't mind that kind of stand on a guy that's going to start, play 30 something minutes in a matchup against another team that is equally as dreadful. So I have no problem getting to him as sort of a GPP pivot, but I think Bridges and Ball are the two priorities for me.
Yeah, that's all Miller is. But the reason I like him is what you said. Like, no one's going there. And this is a spot where he could certainly show upside. Our tools did update a minute ago, but ownership hasn't even been updated yet. So I'm sure it's coming.
I'll grab that in a couple minutes to toss that in, rerun all my stuff, and we'll see where we end up. Do you have anything else you want to touch on here for Charlotte?
I don't think so. It looks like their main guys look really good, but nothing else.
On the Detroit side, we have a Q tag on Cade Cunningham, which was a probable tag earlier today. We also have a probable tag on Monty Morris, who I think is like the most irritating dude you could possibly get to today, because I have no idea how many minutes he's going to play, and he's the flat 3K. They want him to play and play regularly and either be a dude that's a part of their real rotation or be good enough that they can trade him for somebody, because he's certainly a worthwhile point guard in the league and a good per minute dude generally. So he's scaring me. I don't really need to touch more on him because I can't really, like, if you think he's going to play 18 minutes, you should play Monty Morris. If you don't, then you shouldn't. The guy that I'm most interested in here is the second most owned guy for Detroit. 9% owned Bojan Bogdanovic, 5,800, small forward only. I have 2x the field there. Duren is always fine, particularly in a matchup against Charlotte. He's 12% owned at 6,800. Minutes are there. You kind of know what you're getting out of him. We have him as a little bit over-owned, but he's certainly a guy you got to pay attention to in this spot. Are you finding anything else from Detroit? Do you want to get to Cade if he is in? What do we do here?
Cade is priced down, but I don't think you can do it with so many other good guard options today. It is a great spot. So at 7,800, he could end up destroying the slate if he plays full minutes. As someone who plays minimal lineups, really hard for me to get there. I love the Duren shout, though. Like, yeah, you're right. You know what you're getting. He's not underpriced for his median projection or anything. But the ownership, yeah, he's coming in with a little bit negative leverage. Still only 12% owned. I'm fine with that. It's such a good spot against Charlotte. Bigs just eat them alive. So I really like Duren here. You all right?
I'm good.
Okay.
My iced coffee went down the wrong pipe. It's like making my eyes water.
Just had to ask. And then, yeah, Bogdanovic just seems too cheap.
Yeah.
I know like the recent game logs aren't great, but I don't care. I mean, nope. He's just too cheap. So he's a very, very good play on this slate. There are a lot of good plays on this slate, so he's like not a must, but certainly in that value good point per dollar type play tonight.
Yeah, I mentioned Bojan earlier today. It's just one of those situations where you don't get a lot of competitive games from Detroit because they stink, but both of these teams stink. If this game's competitive, I think he's live to play like 34 or 35 minutes, and I only have him in for 31, and I'm still interested. So this is the kind of day I want to get to him, especially at a $5,800 price tag. Still at 0.93 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. He, to me, is the best thing I could get to, but I want Monty Morris to be a thing. I'm just not going to be able to pull the trigger. If Cade's out, I hate it even more. Like, if Cade's in, it's just like, okay, there's just not enough minutes going around where, like, I can trust it. But if he's out, then it's like, oh, no. Like, can I play him? Who do they care more about, Marcus Sasser or Morris? How many minutes do they want to do there? Do they hate Killian Hayes? All of these questions don't have answers because I don't understand what Detroit's doing every single day. I'm not going to be able to figure it out today.
It's so hard to them because at first thought, you'd think they definitely care about Sasser more. But they've continued to say time and time again that they want to win this year. They also potentially probably want to deal Morris, so like get him at least showing that he's healthy. I will say this about Cade, and I'm with you on the Morris stuff, but if he's out, I like Bogdanovic just that much more because I don't have any like this game should be competitive. If one team blows out here, it is what it is, but this game should be competitive, high scoring, not a lot of defense. Bogdanovic looks even better than I thought, to be honest.
By the way, Monty Morris is on a $9.8 million expiring contract. I would be very surprised if he is on the Pistons after the deadline. So I'm guessing they want to make sure that they can show the league that he is healthy, because they can get, 2 seconds or something like that for him for a team that needs a point guard. He would look really nice in like Phoenix. They don't really have even second round picks. Actually, I think they picked up a couple second rounders recently, but that's the type of thing that I think they would be trying to do. So, at least I can breathe now. I got the coffee out of my lungs and into my stomach, which is a much better spot for it. Anything else you want to do here for the Pistons? Obviously, like if Cade is in, it nerfs everybody. You lose that ability to get to Burks. The Ivy usage goes away. Like you feel worse about everybody. If Cade is out here, do you have any interest in Ivy or Burks or anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, they're interesting, but I think there's just guys that look better across the slate in different spots. So hard to prioritize those guys. What about you with Cade if he's in?
I don't think he could play enough. I can't imagine they're just like letting him rip. 30 minutes is probably like a ceiling to me. It doesn't make any sense for him to come out here and play the minutes you want him to play if you roster him. But again, it's the Pistons. I don't trust their decision making across the board.
Yeah, I think if he were a little cheaper, it'd be more of a question.
Yes. Yeah, like if he had some sort of like stale price,
right,
which I'm so happy he doesn't.
Well,
then it would really it would be a good price if you were projecting him for 35 minutes.
I think he's still a little bit too cheap here. Yeah. But like only if he's healthy and playing full run.
Yep, agreed. God, these first couple games. Minnesota, 11-point favorites in Washington, 230 total. We got Mike Conley added to the injury report a little bit earlier. He is questionable with an illness. That trickle-down effect is massive. We will be getting to the $4,200 Nickeil Alexander-Walker if he is out. We've had this experience before. 25% ownership coming in to Mike Conley. He is the highest owned guy for the Wolves at this point. You're getting a little bit of love to Towns, to Kyle Anderson, to Anthony Edwards. What do you like for Minnesota if he's in, and what changes for you if he's out?
If he's in, I like everything. I don't think anything is like a top priority on this slate because I think the price tags are fair, but insert player against Washington and they're in play, especially when you've got good players like Minnesota. So Towns, Edwards, Gobert, those guys look good if you want to spend up. Conley looks like one of the better value plays on the slate. The ownership's already there, so I don't love that, but I understand it. Alexander Walker becomes a must probably if he's out. But if he's in, no one's really pulling a lot of ownership, which makes me like them more. But also, I get it. Like, these guys are priced where they should be.
Yeah, I don't have like a guy that I just want to have, but I'm happy to have a bunch of. If Conley's in, then I'm happy to have like shit like Edwards. I'll take whatever Edwards I get in a spot here against Washington. This matchup is exceptional. I'll take basically like any starter. You give me Gobert, you give me McDaniels, Edwards, Conley if he's in. I'm happy to have all of those. Towns, obviously. But I think you can only really get to Minnesota for volume if we lose Conley.
Total agreement.
Oh, man. But yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, we saw him step into that role with Conley out last game, 2 games ago. What was that? Last game. Played 30 minutes. If you get 30 minutes, he's a 0.7 guy, so that's not exciting. That you get a little bit of a bump to that just because of the matchup. Let's say 22 fantasy points. That's a 5.2x projection at 4,200 across guard forward. He becomes a pretty solid value play. Certainly owned more than what Mike Conley is right now, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Then we kick it over to the Wizards, who are, let's see, we got the ownership update 4 minutes ago. So I'm going to toss that into my sheet right now just to make sure I'm saying whatever the most up-to-date information is for everybody. So let me grab that quickly before we look at Washington. Not that I'm expecting wholesale changes, but we'll take a peek. Washington has 8% ownership to DeLon Wright right now. So that's part of the reason why you would see someone like Nickeil Alexander-Walker start popping off the page. Single-digit ownership to everybody on DraftKings and on FanDuel. Do you like getting to any of these guys as sort of contrarian GPP plays?
No, not even a little bit. Yeah, if you're making 150, I'm not saying you just exclude Washington from your pool, but like they're not even like not priorities. They're like not good plays in my mind that are only in play in tournaments because weird shit can happen. To DeLon Wright, I get it, 3,500, especially because he'll get run regardless, but even more run if Minnesota just rolls them here. So I don't hate that, but I don't need to play him by any means. So, like, no. How about you?
I have some of those DeLon Wright shares. I'm praying that goes away in a little bit. We're talking like 17 minutes and 0.9 fantasy points per minute. It's not ideal. You're really just crossing your fingers and hoping that something like Tyus Jones picks up 6 fouls in the first quarter or something stupid that's impossible. But I understand why it's happening. I'm hoping I could I don't have any real recommendations anywhere. Like, you can always get to Daniel Gafford. If he's going to play enough minutes, he's a fantasy point per minute guy, but you could add him to a list of 1,000 centers that kind of fit that bill on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not really getting to anything from Washington. And as I look back at ownership now, no real changes to the Minnesota side. We've got LaMelo up to 10%, no real changes to anybody else. And then on the Detroit side, still all basically the same thing we were looking at before. Alrighty, folks, hit that like button. 1,300 people in the door, about 110 likes right now. You have to hit that like button in order to see NBA Live Before Lock, which comes up after this show, 6 p.m., takes you all the way up until 7. You don't even have to change your stream. You stay right here, but you won't be able to see it or hear it for some strange reason unless you hit the like button. I don't know how YouTube does that, but that's how it works. So better do it or it won't work. That's my recommendation. My other recommendation is to use our avatar. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, grab that logo, use it on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, or Yahoo. Because if you do that and you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month of whatever you want at Stokastic. I'm assuming it'd be the NBA Sims tool. That'll cover your projections, your ownership, gives you the boom bust tool, lineup generator, contest generator, the sim tool itself, premium Discord, and more things that I'm surely leaving out, like smaller slates, things like that. Full stat line projections. That's there. You can have that as well. Come sign up or do the avatar thing because it costs you nothing. $0. Zilch. Nada. All you got to do is use that logo. If you win, if you're in that top 3, tweet it at Stokastic HOF. That is all you have to do. We want to see your lineup. We want to see which contest you were in. We want to show it off to everybody else. We want to reward you for it. So go to stokastic.com/avatar. The Memphis Grizzlies are 10.5-point favorites in Miami, 213 total. The Memphis Grizzlies are without Steven Adams, Santi Aldama, Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Jake LaRavia, John Morant, Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, and now Luke Kennard has been added to the injury report, questionable with right thigh soreness. They don't have enough bodies, if that's the case. I believe they only have 10 guys, including Scottie Pippen Jr. If we lose Luke Kennard, that would take it down to 9, and it's not like Scottie Pippen Jr. plays a lot. So, yeah. 30% ownership to John Conchar, 25 to big body David Roddy, 20 to Luke Kennard, some scattered ownership everywhere else. What do we do here? Because we're at a point now where it's starting to matter how many guys they have.
It is. It's a bad spot against Miami. Man, like, these guys look good as filler pieces, but part of me is also thinking like Dallas could potentially look way better than Memphis looks right now if Kyrie sits. Obviously, if Luka and Kyrie sit, I doubt Luka doesn't play against Phoenix personally, but we'll see. Kyrie sounds like he's truly questionable, so that opens up a lot in Dallas. From Memphis, like the Conchar play, I get it, and he's projected to be optimal a decent amount of time this slate plays out. So is Roddy. I have nothing bad to say about these guys. Like, I don't want to fill my lineups up with like all Memphis guys because I could see them really just struggling in this spot, but they're cheap enough. And like you said, they don't have enough bodies where it almost doesn't matter. You kind of need to play some Memphis here. I don't like it, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, I've bumped up my Roddy minutes since earlier today. So I'm neutral to the field on him now. I'm neutral to the field on John Conchar at 4K. I mean, obviously, if I'm getting like DeLon Wright, getting to John Conchar as a value piece is just going to happen for sure. I am getting to Luke Kennard at 5,500. I certainly think he looks good. If he's able to play, he's going to play big minutes. Give me in, like, if I get shares of Vince Williams, that's fine. I'm intrigued by Tillman in that I think he's live to play like 34 or 35 minutes. They jerk this guy around in the lineup all the time, but you see those times when they're like really shorthanded. He had a stretch of games earlier where like Aldama was out, Biyombo was already kicked to the curb, no Smart, no Bane, no Morant, played 36 minutes, 36 minutes, 31, 31. Like he has it in him to play those minutes. They just seem to never do it. But I think they're out of guys to stop him from doing that now. So I think he's live for a couple extra minutes. I like him in GPPs. I just don't appear to be getting as much as I thought I would. We have him 9.5% optimal, 9% owned. I think that makes some sense. What do we do here if Luke Kennard is out?
Man,
are we getting like a lot of Jacob Gilyard at that point?
I don't want to, but potentially, yeah. Man, already right now, Vince Williams looks really good in our tools. 10% chance of being optimal, 5% ownership. Like he's, for what you think of Vince Williams, he's way too expensive, but he's been that guy for a little bit now with Memphis dealing with like their whole team being injured. He would look better. I mean, everyone would look better. I hate this spot for Memphis. I don't want to get too much exposure here, but like I said, you kind of have to. I'd rather get to the cheap guys, the Conchars, Roddies of the world, even maybe throwing a GG Jackson. If Kennard's out, just like open up everything else too. The Gilyards of the world.
Yeah, I think Zaire Williams at that point starts to become a thing at 3,500. Like there's we have a lot of prices that are very viable for Memphis. It's not going to feel fun though. That's for sure.
No, it's not.
You know what's really funny? I don't, if you mentioned him, my apologies for bringing him up again, but like, I feel like the one guy we're not talking about is the guy that's still just the actual good player on this team, $8,200 power forward center, Jaren Jackson. But like, I think he's in for a real rough night.
Yeah, same. I did not bring him up. I do not really like him here. I just think there's other better options priced around him. He's not for me. He is like their best player. So this game's competitive. He probably played well. This is not the spot I want to play Jaren Jackson at 8,200 though.
Cade Cunningham ruled out. Monty Morris available to play limited minutes. So I hope limited means just enough to not get into my lineups.
Who knows what that means?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll find enough value on this Memphis team if something happens to Luke Kennard. Really wish this was a 7 o'clock start instead of 7:30, but I'll be late swapping either way. And then we get to the new look Miami Heat. Kyle Lowry out. Terry Rozier in. 7,400 for Terry Rozier today. Shooting guard only. Q tag on Haywood Highsmith. No Jaime Jaquez, but he looks like he is close to returning. We have basically no ownership coming into Miami. I had a bit of a stand on Bam earlier. I think he looks worse now with Rozier in because now you have Rozier as a real usage guy, Bam as a real usage guy, Butler and Tyler Hero. I don't know how you prioritize any one individual dude in this spot. And I don't get the sense that they're going to have to put the pedal to the floor to get through Memphis today. Not to mention they are on a back-to-back and Miami's got the Celtics tomorrow. So do you want anything from Miami other than like, if you had Bam Adebayo in a lineup, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, like you're fine having those dudes. They are functional members of lineups, but do you see anything that you actually want?
No. I will say out of all those guys, Bam is still my favorite.
Yeah.
Just because the point still holds. There's a lot of ownership leverage coming off Sengun going to Bam. Like, I still don't think the chances of Sengun outscoring Bam are like 10-1. So, yeah, Bam looks a little bit worse and they do play tomorrow. But the other side of that, I think about how this game could play out, like Memphis really struggling. Bam could just eat inside on missed shots, rebounds, all that. So, like, he would be the one that I would want to get to. But again, playing like one lineup in the big contest tonight, I would highly doubt I play Bam.
Yeah, the scary thing for me in that sort of situation is like you picture Bam owning the boards and it's just like, oh, Memphis can't get it done. But if that's happening, that also means they're not scoring and Bam's getting those rebounds. And you are like very likely to have this massive blowout on your hands and they don't have to let it rip any further.
Yeah, agreed. I could see them letting Rozier like really acclimate himself in this pretty easy spot tonight. especially when they play Boston tomorrow. So I'm with you. It makes everyone from Miami look less desirable, and they already looked pretty crappy on this slate.
And I'm pretty sure Rozier cares a lot more about that Boston game tomorrow than he does about this crappy Grizzlies team today. Just a guess, though. Well, all right. Anyway, welcome to Heat Culture, Terry Rozier. You should likely be better than Kyle Lowry.
I would hope so.
Well, for everything that he does on offense, he has tended to give it up on defense as of late. We'll see how that shakes out with a real team behind him. Speaking of teams that aren't as interesting, the Portland Trailblazers are 10.5-point underdogs in Houston, 220 total. And I don't have the new injury report at 5:30 yet, so we'll wait on that one. No Moses Brown, no Shaedon Sharpe, no Robert Williams. Same thing we've seen recently. 6% ownership to Malcolm Brogdon is the highest owned guy on DK. 16 for Jabari Walker on FanDuel. If you're playing on FanDuel, he's probably the guy you're looking at. I don't have a single share of a guy from Portland today, and I do not anticipate getting one.
Yeah, Portland looks just like Washington for me here. So, like, no, I'm not interested in Portland. Just too many other good spots on this slate. Like, especially someone who's playing 1 to 3 lineups. Like, there are so many good spots I'm not going to be able to play. I'm not playing Portland here.
Now, I don't really know, like, just sort of like everybody else when I say, like, I'm not playing anybody here. If you get Anthony Simons in a lineup or something like that, that's fine. If you get these guys that are going to play starter minutes, all it takes is Portland being like, again, we got 3 teams that are 10-point dogs today. One of them is going to be in a competitive game and could potentially win that game. If that's Portland today, then Anthony Simons probably looks all right, but he's just never going to look as good as every other guy you compare him to in his range.
Yeah, just like Washington. If I were playing 150, I wouldn't be like excluding Portland guys. I'd be fine with wherever I get. I just probably wouldn't get a lot.
Yep. Completely agree. Completely agree. What do you want to do now with Houston, who have just complicated matters a little bit? Jabari Smith now questionable for today. Jayshawn Tate questionable for today. Do you like anything from Houston? Because we obviously have someone in Alperen Şengün that is looking pretty darn tasty for this matchup.
Yeah, he looks really, really good. So on one hand, he's 8,300 on DraftKings, projected for basically 50 DraftKings points. Like, it's really hard to get away from a guy like that. On the other hand, he's getting too much ownership. He's the most negatively leveraged play on the slate.
Yep.
So in any one lineup, I think the pivot to Bam or just not playing a center in that range is viable. But on paper, he looks like one of the best plays on the slate. I don't think there's any way around that. Do you agree?
No, he's one of the best guys you can get to today. 23% optimal, big time rate. I have a bunch. I have 32, but that's still going to be coming in a little bit lighter than that 45 that we are projecting, which is totally fine for me. I do love the spot. I'm not concerned with DeAndre Ayton at all. Şengün's at 1.4 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. I think he justifies every bit of this. I have him projected for 49.7. He's at 49.8 on our site, so I'm spot on there. But I'm also getting to a little bit of other things from Houston. Same guys that are getting the love. Fred VanVleet is 17% owned. I'm a little bit higher than that. The real problem for me is $5,900 Jabari Smith, and it's an even bigger problem for me because he's now questionable. I have a very big stand on Jabari in this one, and I don't love that given the new news, but I did think that he looked pretty good. Hasn't been playing well as of late, about a tenth of a fantasy point below his normal rates. What else do you like from Houston? Do you want to get to VanVleet or even Jabari Smith given the ownership? Or are you kind of just waiting it out to see, what happens if Smith ends up out and we can get to a little bit more value?
Everything else on Houston, I'm waiting out except for Şengün and VanVleet. VanVleet doesn't look like quite as good a play as Şengün, but right on that next level. Like, man, he is just also too cheap. 7,400 for VanVleet in a really good spot. He's just too cheap. I mean, you don't have to play him tonight because there's a lot of players that are in play, and he's not the only guy that's too cheap here, so it's all relative, but his price tag stands out, at least to me. He looks like a building block type in all formats. He's coming in with a little bit negative leverage, but still only 17% owned. Now, the problem with VanVleet is, like, if you start playing a bunch of 7,400 guys, then you're not getting to, like, the Lukas of the world. who I also really like. So,
or at least I did earlier.
Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity costs, and you're going to need a big game out of VanVleet here, but he's more than capable of it. He's too cheap. I like him quite a bit. Everything else on Houston, I want to wait and see. Who stands out to you most? Like if Jabari and Tate are out, let's say.
I mean, you certainly have to feel better about probably Cam Whitmore a little bit.
Yeah.
You start to think about him as a value option because he's been a fantasy point per minute guy since he's been up for this past month. That's been helpful. You could see a pretty sizable bump to minutes to Jeff Green potentially. He's 3,200, has the power forward eligibility, which helps. Because we got to remember, no Tari Eason around.
I was
today.
literally just about to say that, so you read my mind.
To a degree, you like Dillon Brooks a little bit more. Like his minutes firm up. His touches can go up a little bit. He's 5,200, but he's shooting guard, small forward, so the position helps a little. Like as you start removing real rotation pieces, that is going to make Dillon Brooks look like a better option, and it's going to allow Dillon Brooks to play a little bit more like the way Dillon Brooks wants to play. But you're just going to pick up some value from Amin Thompson, from Cam Whitmore, and I think from Jeff Green. And I think you feel a little bit better about Jalen Green's minutes too. I know that those guys aren't like direct pivots, but you tend to like add a couple extra minutes to the current rotation when you start dropping those guys. You don't want to just immediately fill in with like your favorite 9th and 10th dudes.
Right. Like a lot of those times, those guys are still not going to play. The guys that do play. What?
Mike Conley out.
Okay. So at least we got that kind of early. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. I like the Whitmore call a lot, especially because it's a really good spot. I will say, though, like he still will be, and we saw this last time he started, he did nothing because he's fourth or fifth on the pecking order when you've got Sengun, Jalen Green, and VanVleet. So, yeah, I like the Whitmore call. He'd probably be my favorite guy if those guys are out. You want to touch on Minnesota quickly?
No. Sure don't. Oh, man. Oh, by the way, Jalen Green is also questionable tonight. So there's that.
He was at shoot around. I expect him to play. Who the hell knows? But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I wasn't sweating that one as much as the other guys. I mean, I think we kind of covered this for Minnesota already. It's get yourself to more Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We just saw this. You're going to be projecting him for 29, 30 minutes, something like that. We saw big minutes out of everybody else. Edwards, Gobert, Towns, and McDaniels all played, mid-30s or higher. You didn't really see a bump for anybody else. I know Kyle Anderson was a guy that I got to quite a bit in that last game. They just continue to only play him like second unit, 20 minutes a game type stuff unless multiple people are out. He's certainly, he's already pulling 8% ownership. I'm assuming you have to bump him like an extra minute or so. So Kyle Anderson is more in play than he was before. I don't get excited about that one. I think it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker that's pulling the biggest benefit. And I'm not sure, like you're going to bump assist rates a little bit for Anthony Edwards, for Karl Anthony Towns. But like, I don't think this frees up Jordan McLaughlin. They didn't do it last time. I don't expect that to happen here. You saw Shake Milton step into the rotation last time, but he only played 14 or 15 minutes. If he had the same rates as Monty Morris, then it would be one thing, but he's a 0.75 guy. So I think it's really just sort of more Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then you feel a little bit better about Towns. Hey, maybe Towns will score 60 again.
I was going to say that game played out so weird last time. First off, it's just, I chuckle thinking about it's just the perfect Karl Anthony Towns scoring 60 and them losing. Like that is Karl Anthony Towns in a nutshell. And the game played out so weird. They even talked afterwards how they were forcing Towns the ball, etc. Like, I don't know how much you can trust. Like Naz Reid was really popular last slate. He didn't play a ton, I think, because Towns was like whatever Towns was doing. I think he's sneaky in tournaments tonight. I don't think Conley being out like does anything for him specifically, but
no,
I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a little more tonight than he did last game. Just saying.
I'd love to know what the discourse would be around Towns right now if they just won that game. Like they got that correct foul call at the end and it's a win. And like, because there's no chance their coach is coming out and shitting on him if they win the game.
The discourse around Towns is always pretty negative though. So you're right. People are looking for stuff to pick at him with.
Like they won the game. They lost the game on like a little bit of bullshit. Even if they were force feeding him, like if they win the game, I just don't think that everybody's like chirping as negatively about it.
Oh, I completely agree, because they would have nothing to chirp about.
Oh man, it's going to be interesting. Towns is going to have like 15 assists tonight.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. He's definitely not going to shoot like a ton at all. It'll be
I hope,
interesting
you
to
know what?
see.
I honestly hope he does it again. Just comes out there like a total asshole and just lets it fly. He's playing Washington. It's not like they're going to stop him. Who they're going to guard him with? Kuzma?
Yeah.
Anything else for Houston? I guess that was the team that we were actually talking about.
No, sir.
Alrighty, then we got to talk a little bit about Sleeper. They are the sponsor of this show. I love promoting Sleeper because they've got the best deposit match bonus in the industry if you're playing on the pick'em sites. Up to $500 on your first deposit. Whatever you put in, up to $500, they're going to match it. You should be trying to capitalize on those deposit bonuses when you can. Figure out where you want to play because there's a lot of the options out there. Get some money on a couple of different spots, but take advantage of these spots so that you can soak up extra money. Maybe down the line, you don't feel like this is where you want to be. Maybe down the line, you feel like it is, and you've built up a big bankroll. But you can build up a bigger bankroll when you start with these deposit bonuses. You could 100x payouts. They actually have dynamic payouts. So it's not just even action on both sides like you would see at like Prize Picks, for instance. You could get, 2x or 3x multipliers on some of these plays. That's what's going to get you all the way to those 100x payouts. You also have an SGA free square for today. You should be taking advantage of free squares whenever you can. That will help bring down your costs associated with playing at the sites. They're not going to let you just put $500 down on Shea over a 0.5 points. It's going to be limited, but that will help to offset some of the costs of like rake, essentially. Click the link in the description, sign up for Sleeper, use Odds Shopper if you're looking for more plays. You can go to oddsshopper.com or click those links in chat. But get in there, make a sizable deposit, and get yourself started with a real bankroll. Now, if you don't have the ability to do that, even if you want to put in 50, they're going to match with 50 either way, and you can still take advantage of that SGA free square for tonight. Links in the description or in chat. Sign up at Sleeper now. See if I can get back to my sheet. Here we go. Cleveland Cavaliers. They are 7-point underdogs in Milwaukee, 236 total. Now, Cleveland, interesting team for today. They are going to be without their backup center, Tristan Thompson. Got a little saucy over the past couple days, and he is now going to be suspended for, I don't know, probably the rest of his career, if I had to guess. It's amazing what happens when you are working in media and then come back to play basketball. I wonder what you take to make that happen. But I also wonder who else sees his doctor, because they're probably doing the same thing he is. Anyway, no Tristan Thompson for this one. Karis LeVert is questionable. I feel like he's permanently questionable. We have 15% ownership to Max Strus, similar to Jared Allen, similar to Isaac Okoro, similar to Donovan Mitchell, similar to Dean Wade. But let's start with this one. Are you assuming Damian Jones just steps into the role of Tristan Thompson?
I am, and I really like him, like from a leverage standpoint. Before I even touch on that, though, two things. One, Monte Morris is now the highest owned player on the slate. Not
What?
sure if you updated it, but yeah, Monte Morris is now the highest owned player on the slate. And then also the Tristan Thompson thing, real quick. Obviously, I'm from Cleveland, so I see a lot of this stuff. And that's the funniest meme I saw was he threw like a no look pass in their last game against Orlando. And the meme, not the meme, whatever, it was like, as soon as Tristan Thompson threw a no look pass, they had to test him for PEDs. And so true. So true. But yeah, Cleveland tonight, I like Damian Jones. He is, at least he was, the highest leveraged player on the slate. Still up there. 8% chance of being optimal, only 1% ownership. Granted, he's only projected for 14 DraftKings points, but yeah, I do think he steps into that role, and I think he's playable. How about you?
I'm nervous. He traditionally, I have him in as a 0.85 fantasy point per minute dude. I gave him 14 minutes. If that's the case, I have him projected for 12 fantasy points. Now, there's certainly upside, and he's definitely, Jared Allen foul trouble away from picking up a little bit more play time. But I don't expect to get to him. I like the idea of getting to him in larger field GPPs. If he were a better per minute dude normally, it would really become a problem. Like if he was just some sort of Andre Drummond character where he's like 1.2x off the bench, that's where it starts to get really scary. I'm a little bit less concerned for him tonight, but I see the path for sure. You want to try to get that on the day where he's 3K. Also, by the way, that Monty Morris ownership is not going to hold. He's not going to be 45% owned. He's just not. It's impossible. I had him projected like fairly aggressively earlier today. I couldn't have gotten to that number even if I wanted to. But I love that I've advocated for Monty Morris all day today. And now that it's about to have it, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to fade the hell out of that dude.
Whether I agree with you, he's not going to be 46% owned. But I think what it is telling us is that he will be owned.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's going to be owned now, for sure. For sure. Because now you have an actual reason to play him.
Right. Yeah.
But
there's a lot of good plays on this slate.
I don't think that you can manage that knowing that he's limited in any way. Like he's a good value play, but all it takes is one other decent value play to beat him because they got 26 minutes or something like that. And you're fighting an uphill battle. I don't know if he can get to the raw points enough for this Detroit team.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's not the 3K guy projected for 25 fantasy points. He's projected
like when he's
17.
2% owned, you're getting a different utility out of it. When he's 25% owned, it changes the equation for me.
Right.
Yeah,
so
like he was in my optimal when I ran it this morning on the process show, 2 hours before the strategy show.
Now, it's not as pertinent tonight, but you are funneling yourself when you play guys like that also that are really popular.
Yeah. And like, let me look at one thing here. So I think that ownership update also happened without the Mike Conley news. So Conley's still in at 21. So like Nickeil Alexander-Walker's about to pick up like 20-something% ownership from that too.
Yeah, good point. So just in that, his ownership is coming down. Great point.
Yeah. So for Cleveland, just circling back to these guys, I've got a little bit over the field on Donovan Mitchell that will always work for me. I'm getting more Isaac Okoro than I want. We got him in for 31 minutes. I only have him in for 28. Comparable projections both ways. We have him negatively leveraged. I feel like he's negatively leveraged, that's for sure. I'm hoping that I can bring that down a little bit. He's right there in that same sort of price range as Walker, so I'm hoping that goes away a little bit. But if I'm getting to anybody here, the two guys that I want are Mitchell and Allen. The Strus ownership feels pretty high too. He's had some very weird rotations as of late. I'm just never excited to get to Cleveland.
Yeah, nah, me neither. It'll even get worse when Garland and Mobley are back. So these guys are now priced for Mobley and Garland to be out. Strus is cheaper than he'd been, but he doesn't really, I'm not jumping over hoops to get him tonight. There's just too many other good plays in my opinion. I don't love Cleveland here. I think you see like a better than normal defensive effort from Milwaukee, considering the circumstances. And they just got embarrassed by Cleveland like a week ago. Not playing these guys because of it, but Cleveland doesn't stand out to me anyways. I couldn't play Mitchell over LaMelo Ball.
No. Well,
you could.
I'm indifferent. By the way, these two teams play again on Friday.
Interesting.
But no, I mean, I prefer LaMelo to Mitchell for sure.
When I say I couldn't play Mitchell over LaMelo Ball, I mean, if I'm playing one lineup, I'm playing LaMelo Ball over Mitchell. But if I'm playing 150, I'm not like excluding Mitchell for LaMelo Ball. I'd be happy with whatever Mitchell I got in that case.
To the people asking about Sam Merrill, you can't play Sam Merrill unless you get Karis LeVert out. He's 5,300 now. Like the minutes just aren't going to be there. You need LeVert to evacuate his playing time in order to get to Merrill's playing time. So yeah, I don't mind at all getting to Sam Merrill if you can project him for 28 minutes or something like that. At that point, he becomes a guy that is rosterable. He is not until you get the LeVert news.
Agreed.
The Milwaukee Bucks looking like a new team today with a new coach. Also looking like a team with no ownership, single digits across the board on DraftKings. 16% to Malik Beasley earlier on FanDuel. I've got two guys in double digits, and they're the two guys that I would want to have in double digits. I'm just over the field on Giannis at 10%, and I have 18% of my boy Chris Middleton, who is, to me, underpriced at 6,600 and underprojected by us.
Yeah, I think he's underprojected. I don't think again, another guy that looks good to me, too cheap, but so are 20 other guys in this slate. So like, I like him. Not a must for me at all. I'll be fine if I don't get any Milwaukee. I like Giannis a lot. He's coming in with leverage. If you play Giannis, though, you're just hamstrung in the rest of your lineup spots. And I like Luka slightly more. Luka actually coming in a little bit lower owned. So yeah, give me Luka there. I think Milwaukee looks good all over. I do think they play, good ball tonight after especially what happened recently, but doesn't make me like want to get there in DFS personally. Like always, if I ended up getting to some Giannis or Dame and if I were playing 150, I'd be more than happy with that. But the only guy I think I could even see prioritizing is Middleton.
I'm telling you guys, get yourself some Chris Middleton. That price is not correct. The position is perfect. And this is the guy that's playing 32 minutes a night when these games are competitive. And I expect I don't have any reason to suspect that this one isn't. The only times over the past 30 days where he hasn't played more than 31 and a half minutes were January 4th, the game that he played half of it and then didn't come back out and play for rest. So that one's easy. The 11th, he played 20 minutes. No one on the team played more than 28. And then on the 17th, with Giannis out, he still only played 20. No one on the team played more than 25. When this team is playing a regular rotation, he's playing 32 minutes a night. I want Chris Middleton today. That said, I pretty much get him wrong constantly. He never rewards me for my blind faith. So I'm hoping that can be different today.
He's definitely too cheap. There's just other players on this slate that are also too cheap.
Yeah, that's why I like him, because no one's getting to him too.
Yeah,
that's my path.
Love that.
Phoenix Suns, 2.5-point favorites in Dallas, 240 total. This is a team I basically never get to. I need them on like turbo slates and things. Single digit ownership across the board on FanDuel or on DraftKings. Beal is 28% on FanDuel, so keep your eye there. This is the same thing we say basically every time Phoenix plays. Beal, Booker, Durant, Nurkic. Those are the guys that you will be okay with playing. Grayson Allen up to 5,900 is scary as hell to want to go to, but I'll take a Booker lineup. I'll take a Durant lineup. I don't care, but I don't have a single share of Phoenix.
Yeah, really, really tough to get to them because you're paying full prices for all of them. They're just too expensive for their median projection. They're underpriced for their upside, but good luck choosing which one. So they look good in our tools. It's just really hard to prioritize them here when they're all healthy. So yeah. If I end up with Booker, I'm more than happy with it. But it's just a matter of who I'm not playing to make that happen.
Yep. We're on this exact same page. Dallas, I think we're also on the same page. Now, there's no ownership coming into this Dallas Mavericks team. There are some Q tags, though. Seth Curry, Luka Doncic, Dante Exum, and Kyrie Irving. Dwight Powell is out. I have 23% Luka Doncic right now, 3x the field. I want to get a lot of him. I actually had a bit more of Kyrie earlier today, and I want to have that too. Not only, I want to have it for two reasons. One, I think they look like good plays against Phoenix. We know Luka likes to beat the shit out of Phoenix anytime he can play them. And two, if you happen, I kind of want to lock up some of their ownership, because if one of these guys are out, I want to get to a ton of the other one. If Kyrie is out, Luka looks so much better. If Luka is out, Kyrie looks so much better. I want to already have these guys in lineups because of those Q tags. And if by some reason they both end up out, then we're going to find a bunch of value here for Dallas. We're going to start jamming in Tim Hardaway and whatever else pops up. And then I still have all of that salary to move around, especially because Atlanta plays in the late game and they are the most popular team on the slate. What do you want to do with Dallas?
Yeah, I like that. I like that call. I guess my biggest problem with that is I think you like Luka and Kyrie a little bit more if they're both in. I like them if they're in. I just don't think they're underpriced like a lot of other players on this slate are. If one of them is out, I think the other one's a priority. Your point is well taken, though, because if you roster them both and they both happen to be in, you can pivot off both of them, one of them easily. There's the Phoenix guys, there's Wemby, there's Shea, there's Golden State, Atlanta. So it's easy. So I like the call a lot. You're not playing a lot of early guys, but again, that's this slate. There's opportunity costs all over the board.
Do you have any lean? Have you dug into this at all today? Like, you expecting
I
anything here? Or like, are you like, do
I
you have it in your mind that anything is going to happen?
I don't know how this happened, but I kind of missed the Kyrie news up until right before our show. And then just reading about the Kyrie injury, it certainly sounds like he's more likely to sit than Luka. Like Luka's been questionable a few times. I know he's missed a couple games, but he didn't show any signs last game, and this is Phoenix. So for better or for worse, I expect Luka to play. Kyrie, like he sprained his thumb. He was wearing a brace after. Like the X-rays came back negative, but like those are signs of concern for me. He was wearing a brace after his thumb. Like,
Yeah.
not going to be surprised if he sits. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. I hate trying to guess the injury report, but if I had to, that's what I'd say.
Like, you know, at this point, at 8:30, like I'm already making swaps and everything at that point,
Yeah.
so it's not going to matter too much. I'm hoping that I like anytime you're going to get Luka on this kind of slate at relatively low ownership, I'm very happy to just have a big chunk because he's one of those guys that can legitimately break a slate.
It's actually easier than normal also. Like
Yeah.
my ideal scenario is Luka's in and Kyrie is out because then I want all the Luka. But if you just play Kyrie and that happens, there are multiple pivots to get to. Like
Yeah.
Curry. I mean, just, all the Phoenix guys. So I'm with that. I like that call.
Anybody else here for Dallas that you have your eye on? Like, you know, if news breaks correctly, do you want do you like if they're in, do you like anything else from Dallas?
The only guy that I hate this because like is a relative term, but Maxi Kleba at 3,500. He is popping from an optimal perspective, like a leverage perspective. At least he was earlier. Not really. 3.5% chance of being optimal, 1.5% ownership. So I was looking at him earlier, but I think there's other value plays I like more.
All righty, we'll keep this moving. Oklahoma City, 8-point favorites in San Antonio. This one is not on the FanDuel slate. Sorry to the FanDuel peeps. Taking on San Antonio. It's a great spot for OKC. 24th in defensive rating for San Antonio, second in pace. Basically, not a ton of ownership, though. Right around 10 on Chet, Jalen Williams, and SGA. I think all the three of those guys are very much in play. I don't really have much of a preference between them. I'm a little bit over on Chet. I'm right around the field on SGA. I'm clearly getting to a little bit more Luka given the ownership, but I'll take any piece of those couple guys because the matchup against San Antonio looks really good.
Chet versus Wemby is a thing too. Those guys are like rivals for real.
It's fun.
So I know.
It's fun.
I
like a little Spider-Man meme type dude.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but just thinking about that makes me want to play Chet because I feel like they limited these guys' minutes a little bit last night, knowing they had a back-to-back. I like Chet probably the most out of all of them, but that's not really based on anything that you can, put into action. So I like Chet. The other guys, Williams and Shea, are certainly in play. Not must on this slate, but give me all the Shea I get to if I can get to him. He's one of those guys, cheaper than the top studs. So all of a sudden you play Luka and he's out. Shea's an easy guy to go to. Other than that, not really much I'm interested to get from OKC, but I cannot wait to get your Wemby takes.
The San Antonio Spurs are on the opposite side. We don't really have any injury news that's relevant other than Trey Jones being questionable, which really does matter for these guys. You have Malachi Branham, flat 3K. You've got Blake Wesley at 3,600 at point guard. Someone's going to be playing point guard if these guys are out, if Trey Jones ends up out. So you could free up a very uninteresting situation. I think you probably get to, I don't know, they've been going to Wesley more than Malachi Branham. I don't know what that looks like if Jones ends up out. But the big story here is 31% ownership coming into Victor Wembanyama. I only have 12. I am certainly nervous about that. He's a 1.9 fantasy point per minute guy recently. At some point in time, we could see him just play a couple extra minutes, and we don't have to know why that happened. He could have been reevaluated, and we won't know it. I wouldn't mind having more. I don't have more. He's likely to put up a really nice per minute score. Do the minutes end up mattering? It's possible. You never know here. What do you want to do with him? Because like he looks great, but you also just look at it and it's like, okay, well, if he can't play 35 minutes, does that just make everybody else around 8K look interesting. Like, what's the relationship between him and Karl Anthony Towns, given ownership right now? It's an interesting, it's a weird dynamic.
I don't know why I was expecting you to come on and say you thought Wemby was going to play more tonight. I think I've heard murmurs about his minutes limit potentially ending soon.
Yes.
We don't know when that's going to happen.
Correct.
He's cheaper tonight than he has been. If there's no like, yeah, I think he's going to play more tonight than he's played, I still struggle to get there just because of everything you said. Like, there are really good players priced around him. Yeah. Anthony Edwards, DeJounte Murray, Sengun. I know Sengun's pulling the ownership, but you can't play everyone. So I'm sure a lot of lineups that play Wemby won't have Sengun and vice versa, just because it's hard to play both of them together.
I think the interesting piece is like Jaren Jackson is 5% owned and Wemby is 30. Like, I don't think the relationship between those two guys is the same if you're expecting Wemby to still be playing like 27 minutes a night. Like, Jackson is right there taking the full, 30+% usage dude. Certainly projects worse than Wemby. I'm not trying to say that they are comparable in terms of projection today, but that pivot alone is enough to free up some of your ownership.
Yeah, definitely. You can make one pivot like that and you can play all chalk in the rest of your lineup and you're different. So that makes sense to me. I will say though, I said this about Sengun. He's 8,300 projected for about 50. Wembanyama is projected for over 50. Yeah. Hard for me to not at least like a guy like that. Yeah. Man, I don't want to really like him here because of that minutes limit. And there's like LaMelo Ball, Luka, and it doesn't matter that they don't play the same position, because if you start playing Wembanyama and Sengun, you can't play LaMelo Ball and Luka. It's just impossible. So, like I said a couple minutes ago, there's just a ton of opportunity costs on this slate. You're not going to be able to play everyone you want, even if you're 150ing.
And let's not forget, Oklahoma City, top 10 defense. Like, this is not a great matchup for San Antonio. I definitely think Wemby looks worse if Trey Jones isn't running the point for him as well. I'm guessing you would probably get like, Jalen Williams guarding Wemby? And then Chet weak side off of whatever other schlub is in the corner? Something like that?
Yeah.
Unless they just think Chet can handle it.
No, I doubt that. I don't think they're going to. Maybe for extended periods, but I don't think like that's going to be his main guy. I just think that's foul trouble waiting to come.
Yep. Do you like anything else from San Antonio?
No, I do really think your point about Trey Jones being in. Wemby looks, for me, like he's already bordering on like with the minutes limit. Like, I think he needs Trey Jones in for me to want to play him.
All righty. We close it out with the Atlanta Hawks in Golden State, 235 total, 324 likes. You guys are doing great. If you want to watch live before lock after this, the stream stays here, but you got to hit the like button in order to unlock it. Hawks are 6.5-point dogs in Golden State, 235 total. No Trae Young, who is on the injury report with a concussion. Lots of ownership coming into Atlanta, and it's well-deserved because when you take Trae off, everybody gets a bump. 40% to Bogdanovich, 30% to Sadiq Bey, 20% to Onyeka Okongwu and DeJounte Murray, 10 to Jalen Johnson, close to that for Clint Capella. Hard not to like all of these guys, but who stands out the most to you?
Bogdanovich, just still way too cheap. I know that we've talked about a bunch of chalk guys that I'm willing to get away from. He's not. He's like one of the first pieces I'll put into my lineups. 6K is just too cheap. He's going to eat up a guard spot for me. He looks like one of the best plays on the entire slate.
He's my most exposed guy, by the way. I have him in 80% of my stuff at this moment.
He looks just really, really good here. Murray's price has gone up. He still looks great here. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Just there's other guys now in his price range, like Sengun and Wemby, that also look really good. So Bogdanovich is the must for me. There'd be more musts if this were a smaller slate. All those other guys are surely in play. I just think that there's other guys in those guys' price tiers that you can pivot to.
We are on the exact same page. I'm getting to Onyeka Okongwu as like my sort of sneak dude, although he is 19% owned, but I'm getting a bit of a stand there. Minutes have been creeping up again, 4,600, power forward only. Has the opportunity to close over Capella, which is always very interesting. I'm 2Xing Jalen Johnson, who I don't love the price tag, but he's only 12% owned. And then I'm getting my boy Sadiq Bey, which I always do. I'm over on every single dude for Atlanta, except for DeJounte Murray.
I don't know if you saw this, but I guess 9 minutes ago, Kyrie Irving not going through pregame warmup.
Oh, okay. I did not see that,
Yeah, I
but
missed that also.
um, yeah, I wonder why that didn't pop up on my watch. I don't know. Weird. Well, that's important. We'll evaluate that in a bit. Live Before Lock might be able to help you out a little bit more there. We'll close it out with Golden State. Just really not all that interesting. 10% ownership to Dario Saric, 10 to Clay, 2% to Steph. Does kind of feel like a day where you want Steph. Just unowned 9,100. Is today the day that he goes out and shoots the lights out? It's a nice matchup against Atlanta. Bad defense, fast pace. But the more likely scenario for me is that I'm not going to have much of Golden State.
Yeah, unfortunately, same here. I love Steph, but it's really hard to action that tonight, with so many other good plays in his price tier. From a median projection standpoint, he just doesn't stand out at all. It's Steph Curry, so he's got that upside anytime he steps on the floor. If I end up in my last spot having 9,100, give me Steph Curry, but he's not a guy I'm going to build around.
Wow. Yeah, the most I have of anybody is Clay, 8%, which is kind of the same thing. Like, you're just hoping that he goes out there and makes 8 threes. That's what you're praying for Steph. That's what you're praying for Clay.
I do think Draymond is sneaky. Like, I won't play him.
But at some point, he's going to ramp up.
Right. And they just had 2 games where they missed because of the assistant coach passing away. And, like, they don't really have much margin for error. So, like, he could have gotten ramped up in that time that they missed. Yeah. Like, he could play more tonight. And this is a good spot against Atlanta. If I were playing the late slate or something, I'd have interest.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. 8 games up, 8 games down. NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. We got up over 400 likes. These guys want to see the show, apparently. But the other 1,900 people that are here, you're about to get a black screen if you don't hit that thumbs up. Matt, anything else?
That's all I got, man. It was fun.
Shout out to Sleeper. We'll be back later. Stay here for NBA Live Before Lock. Peace.
Yo, it's that time of week again, and what a week it's been. Maybe a little more than a week for the Stokastic avatars all over the leaderboard. If you're trying to get involved, you want to get a free month Stokastic package, any one of your choice up to $200 value, and get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here every single week. All you got to do, download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet us your wins with the screenshot, maybe a cool message as well at Stokastic Hall of Fame. As long as it's a field of 5,000 or more and you finish top 3, you are in. Let's get it started for the week. And we kick it off with our boy, Eric Lindquist. I'm not reading all that, brother, but I love you. $30,000 taking down a chopping the fadeaway for 30K. Just an absolutely massive day for Eric, and we're very happy for him. He said a lot of nice things, but we only have so much time in the day. Peter Hanley, he's back, baby. 50K for Peter Hanley, taking down another one saying, keep it real. Tommy Stoke, how about this one? Our own Tommy, $113,000 on DraftKings. I'm no DFS pro, but using Stokastic Sims made me feel like one last night. Needless to say, chalk up a new high score, move over PokerStars Sunday warm-up. Here's my 113K lineup and how I basically clicked 3 buttons to create. You love to see that. The Sims are working, and they're working well for every sport. Losing to a girl, shout out to the Sims tool. Also, screw you, Jabari Walker. I know this isn't a huge hit. Just want my free month of Sims. And Jorge's back. $60 in the 6,400. It's been a while, but here we are. 6th, an amazing ROI with $60 entry, thanks to the fantastic tools and content by the boys. Alex M, let's go. Another win, $4,000, second place in the 3-point stance for Alex. Mike coming in hot with a $300 win, down to his last $20 before he had to deposit again. Said, your tool saved me. I'm a believer, best in the industry. Gary Wright, less than a week using the lineup generator and found myself in first place. Shout out to Gary. Chris, $1,750. A very simple man with at Stokastic HOF, but interesting screenshot because first place was Gridiron for $7,500, also rocking the Stokastic avatar. And Sean's back every single week, Monster Night on DK. Shout out to the Stokastic crew, best tools and content in the game. what's that? Almost $6,000 between 2 different contests. And CEO of Stokastic, Tom Kennedy, $50,000, just saying decent. And then different sports, same sims, 12,600. We just released the MMA sims too, so that looks good. X Night, what an awesome night. Finally managed to get my first Owner's Box Showdown win. NFL Sims Tool's been a game changer for me in my DFS journey. And Tyson with a $450 win in the and one. That's a tough one to win. Not to mention Slim Lancaster with a $2,000 win there. Second place was also another Stokastic avatar. Rob Stay growing the bankroll with a nice $700+ win here. And then you've got Michael Vassell. Thanks for the inflow. Watch your videos regularly to help build my lineups. Was able to get second in the 30K and one. Don't know if I used the right avatar. That's fine. It works. It says Stokastic. To get the free month, but still very thankful. Keep doing what you're doing. Shout out to all you guys. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. If you haven't been here before, if you have, welcome back. Remember, all you got to do to get involved, get a free $200 subscription to your choosing, is use the avatar at stokastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at Stokastic HOF. We'll see you back here next week.
Hello.
Answering fan mail.
Always. Lee's actually better at trolling me than you are, Greg.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I do.
All right, what is happening, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. Tonight, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got injury scenarios. We've got trades that have happened that are impacting the slate. We've got Terry Rozier making his debut for the Miami Heat. So he's impacting two teams today. We've got the Charlotte Hornets being impacted by Terry Rozier being traded. We've got the Heat being impacted by Terry Rozier making his debut. And we're going to break down all of it today. All we ask for you guys is to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, we've got a giveaway going on. Check out our Instagram page, because if you follow Stokastic_com over on Instagram, there's a post up. You have to guess how many points Alperen Şengün is going to score today. If you get the answer right, you are going to get a free subscription to our NBA lineup generator package. So go follow us on Instagram. Respond to how many points you think that Alperen Şengün is going to score. Here's the worst case scenario. You're wrong, and then you get nothing. The best case scenario is you get it right. You get some free stuff. So go check it out. Our Instagram page, Stokastic_com. Eric, what has happened with you today, my friend?
Yeah, not too much. Just enjoying being rich again. Those are good things. Just enjoying my life. My wife's already just like, we got to go on vacation. I'm like, no, we're not. We're absolutely not. We should pay off house stuff, because there's an eternal money pit that I own that is called a house. And you know this better than anybody, as somebody who's been in a house far longer than me. There's just always something that shows up. It's like, we just got gutters. It rained. And now it's like, well, the gutters need fixing. And to get the guys back out here, like, you're joking me how much this stuff costs from time to time. I mean, it is just mind-blowing how fast money just disappears at this thing.
Yeah, I got like squirrels in my attic at one point, because you think everything's normal. And then all of a sudden it's like, how come I hear a noise in the attic? Turns out it's squirrels. And then for whatever reason, it's thousands of dollars to get squirrels out of your attic. You got to get a guy comes, sets traps. You got to have somebody then removes the squirrels because else you just got dead animals living in your attic. It's a whole big to do.
And then you have to pay the guy to fillet you. No, never mind. You don't do that. No, you would never do that.
Exactly. You do it to him for half
except
price.
for half the cost.
Yeah, exactly. That's come on. This ain't this guy's a rookie homeowner over here. Doesn't even know the right way to negotiate.
You don't even want to know how it works if you got rats in your attic. Oh man, night.
Yeah, that's you're giving up the other end for rats. That's a whole big expense. Big deals when you get animals in the house. So yeah, so let's help Eric win some more money today. We'll talk through what it is that we're going to be doing on the slate. We're sponsored by Sleeper, but let's start, Eric, by looking at some of the injury scenarios and just kind of recapping the players who are on the injury report right now that we're still waiting for. Luka Doncic is questionable. Kyrie Irving is questionable. Trey Jones is questionable. Jabari Smith Jr. is questionable. Luke Kennard is questionable. Karis LeVert is questionable. Jalen Green is questionable. Dante Exum is questionable. Eric Gordon is questionable. I wasn't even going to consider adding Dante Exum to this list of players, but considering that Kyrie Irving and Luka are both questionable, Dante Exum being questionable takes on a whole new meaning because if he's out as well, that's a whole bunch of value that opens up for Dallas. So what's most important looking at this slate for me is how do we go about building our lineups while potentially reserving some space to late swapping for Dallas Mavericks players?
Yep.
How are you approaching that scenario?
It's 100% all that I wrote about, all I've talked about with everybody in DMs and going through this slate. My article basically covers it to a certain extent. So Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving didn't go through shoot around. I took him out. I don't think Kyrie is going to be playing basketball today. Maybe they're just chilling, coasting, but like that's a pretty clear sign to me that, right thumb. It's like, why wouldn't he be warming up with a right thumb? Like tried to just whatever. Maybe, you get your legs loose or do something, but like that's such a weird injury for him to not be at shoot around. So that seems pretty clear that he's not going to play to me. Dante Exum's going to be limited. So you're talking about 18, 20 minutes coming off of plantar fasciitis tops. I can't really see a scenario where I'd want to put him in for 24 minutes. So I am just going to be building around Jaden Hardy over and over and over again. And I think one of the ways that I'm going to do it is I'm just going to have a ton of exposure to Atlanta, more than I would want at their current ownerships, but I really don't care. 10 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. They're all chalky items. I mean, specifically DeJounte Murray there at the guard position, Bogdan Bogdanovic at the shooting guard position, but like just getting to tons of them, like almost maxing out my capacity to get to them. It ensures that I'm going to have lineup spots to be able to loop around to get to guys like Jaden Hardy, like Tim Hardaway Jr. And obviously, Luka Doncic is really, really expensive. I would want to be getting to him. And, if he ends up sitting, then, this is the best value spot in the entire slate. And you're going to want to get to them ad nauseum. So I'm building with a lot more Atlanta. Wembanyama I'm getting to. And then even for salary purposes, I'm going to be getting to some more like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, just guys from this game environment, just so that I can kind of mix and match and have salary to utilize places. We have SGA, Victor Wembanyama. We have high upside options that we can unload salary on in that mid game between the Phoenix-Dallas game and the Atlanta-Golden State one. So I've crunched out a bunch of different lineups. I've gone in the Sims tool and brought over a ton of lineups where I was just completely backloading. And I kind of like the way that they look. I mean, obviously, I think the key scenario for me would have Luka get ruled out too, so that I can utilize that salary elsewhere and then jam Jaden Harvey. But if Luka plays, Hardy probably goes off the board to some extent, but still Josh Green would be playing 30 plus minutes. You got Derek Lively, who's at least decent enough. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. has been starting in these scenarios. So yeah, I know I just went on a complete rant for it, but like it is definitely the premier thing you need to get right on today's slate.
I can tell you this based on the betting lines, the market is certainly speculating that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be shorthanded because if Dallas is fully healthy and Phoenix is fully healthy, there is no way that Phoenix is a multiple point favorite on the road in Dallas,
Correct.
Which is what we have today. Phoenix Suns 2.5 point favorites on the road in Dallas taking on the Mavericks. Now there are a number of outcomes that are going into what that line is. It doesn't mean that Luka or Kyrie are a lock to sit, but they're weighing the different risks and rewards of how the line can move if these players are ruled out. And there's a pretty clear indication that they're leaning more towards the fact that Dallas is going to be shorthanded. It doesn't have to mean that both Kyrie and Luka are both going to sit, but there's certainly an indication here that there's going to be a somewhat shorthanded Dallas Mavericks team. And as far as it impacts my lineups, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, Eric, because the very first game on the slate, there's two games that lock at 7 p.m. Eastern time. One of them, Mike Conley, is out for the Minnesota Timberwolves. For Charlotte, we just saw Terry Rozier traded. So there's a lot of value available for both of these two teams. And what I think we should talk through is which players we feel like we need to get exposure to from the early game. Because like before the show started, we were talking with Lee about Monty Morris being somebody like, hey, do we think Monty Morris plays 19 minutes? Do we think he plays 17 minutes or things along those lines? For me, though, it's almost kind of irrelevant because I'm going to be getting a little bit of exposure to Monty Morris, but my hopes are that there's just better values that open up later on the slate as players get ruled out. And that's kind of how I want to bet playing this slate is I want to bet that more value is going to open up later in the day that's better than what's available now. So what can you not do without in the first couple games? Or could you actually feel like you have to play?
Normally, when you ask that question, it's like, what's the best possible value? What's the worst possible value? And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is showing up quite a bit. I think you just look at the box score from last time out, played 30 minutes. I mean, if he plays 30 minutes in a spot start yet again here, he's a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy, only a 13.5% usage guy, but that's still multi-positional eligibility with the shooting guard small forward where he's going to sneak into lineups. Not saying that you have to play him at the field at 32%, but I think it's a little foolish if you're building out more than 5 lineups to not have some Nickeil Alexander-Walker in your life. As you get to Kyle Anderson, I think that's an okay piece also at 4,100. They kind of go hand in hand. They're two guys that, you know, were in my winning lineup. They were extremely chalky. I was right around the field on both of them that specific day and didn't have any kind of crazy strong stance. Think that I'm with you where like, or not, I haven't gotten your stance on it yet, where I do know that like Minnesota kind of makes sense considering we just saw the situation. The tags have come up a little bit. Monty Morris, I'm a little bit freaked out, mainly because he's point guard only. There's only 3 spots that you can play him. And if you get 18, 19 minutes of Iowa State legend, Monty Morris, he's serviceable. He's my guy. But like, I will play 0% and just hope that somehow, some way, multi-positional Jaden Hardy at 3,600 shows up because he's the absolute nuts of the slate. I would want 100% of him. And any lineup that I had with Monty Morris would feel like a sunk cost in my portfolio by not having Jaden Harvey if you have Luka and Kyrie out. I would want 100% of him, and I can play him in 4 different spots with the shooting guard positionality. So for me, I think the full fade is probably what's more interesting to talk about, that I'm looking at just getting away from 100% Monty Morris just because of the eligibility. Not that he's some horrendous play. He could put up 25 and you would need him, but like Jaden Harvey's going to be projected north of 25 alone, well within his range of outcomes for his projection. If you have Kyrie and Luka out, he'll play 30 minutes. He'll be a ridiculous guy to get to here on this slate. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyle Anderson, a little bit of Jalen Duren, and then Anthony Edwards, Bojan Bogdanovic without yet again Mr. Cade Cunningham out there. His usage should be well intact, even though Jaden Ivey's been a killer in that regard. He's 5,800 with small forward eligibility. Feel like I can't live without like those main pieces.
So I've got my lineups built out in the Sims tool, right? And this right now is just me building lineups, you know, running stuff through the contest generator and then just letting it run. And then I look at some of the exposures and I know what I have right now and I'm starting to make some adjustments. And part of this too is me figuring out as we're talking through it and trying to figure out, you know, which pieces do I need? Which pieces do I not need? And the parts that I don't want to play is somebody like a Monty Morris, because I do think that if anybody gets ruled out in the later stages of the game, they're going to be players that would have projected better for Monty Morris, even if we get like the 18 minutes at a Monty Morris. Like, even if we're really optimistic about Morris, there's going to be better value plays that open up from Dallas if Luka and or Kyrie Irving are out. And even if we aren't certain of any one individual player being out, there's enough guys on the injury report that I feel pretty good that we could say a couple of them are at least going to be ruled out post-lock. So if we go team by team, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyle Anderson, 2 guys that I'm going to be doing ROI downgrade boosts to, because if I just run everything as is, I get around 30% of them, more than I want, right? These are guys that are still in play, but I'm probably going to be like half the field on them. Reasonable?
Yes.
And then as far
I'm going to
as
have 0 Monty Morris for what it's worth.
Okay. And as far as the pay up options, I'm not as inclined to downgrade the pay up options from the earlier game, because if value opens up later on the day, well, then the pay up options would have looked even better in those kind of scenarios. So I don't have to mess around with the LaMelo Ball or Karl-Anthony Towns, their ROIs or anything like that in the Sims tool, which, by the way, if you guys want to sign up for any of the packages, we have at Stokastic.com. Use one of the links below. Eric just won $30,000 in the $15 2 days ago using the Sims product. I've had a really good basketball season. A bunch of people in Discord have been crushing as well. Like Sean Jeezy, dude wins the mini max somehow. If there's
he won
if
it
there's
yesterday
7 days,
too.
if there's 7 days a week, which there usually are, he wins the mini max 10 of those 7 days. Dude's been killing it. So lots of people finding success with the tools, and then also our Discord, which Lee, he's here. I'm in Discord constantly. Rich as well, answering questions you guys have. I'm going to be okay with the pay up options in the early game. My favorite one is LaMelo Ball. Is he also your favorite pay up option from the early game? By
far. Are people not looking at his rates without Terry Rozier? Like from last year?
They're insane. He's 1.5 fantasy points per minute, 35% usage rate, scoring over 30 real life points per 36 minutes. Yeah, he's been crazy good with the Terry Rozier off the court. Not just this year, like you said, dates back to last year as well.
Yeah, more so last year. And obviously the minutes have room to grow here as he's gotten healthier. I mean, it's a competitive spot, which Charlotte and Detroit never have competitive spots. Have you ever seen a 4-39 team that was 3.5-point favorites? I know I haven't. This is absurd stuff. LaMelo Ball, 9,600. I'm shocked by his ownership. I'm really shocked. He played 35 minutes against Minnesota, and that was by far the most minutes we had seen since he got back here on the 12th. I feel really optimistic about LaMelo Ball compared to the field here. I wouldn't say, so you said he's like by far your favorite. He's by far my favorite relative to ownership. Like there's guys, Anthony Edwards, like he is sitting at 8,700 and he's playing Washington and that game environment's awesome. He has the shooting guard eligibility to go with it here. But I mean, just from like a raw points plus what that ceiling can be. I mean, we have him at 35 minutes, 54 fantasy points. And I feel like we're maybe even a little bit light, like ever so slightly. Like what if he, like, there's a right tail to what could end up happening here in terms of the bell curve. Like, he could play 38 minutes with 60 as, like, the flat projection in a competitive spot. So, like, I'm not saying it's super, super likely. And obviously, LaMelo Ball is a piece that, for all intents and purposes, should still be there in Charlotte. He's probably the only asset that they're going to be holding on to, or wouldn't be, like, okay with leaving Brandon Miller probably too. But, my God, LaMelo Ball is just in a nuke spot.
There we go. Was that a little bit of foreshadowing?
It was not, but it was adorable. It just felt set. It felt right to say there. Also, I do want to ask Lee here. We got this just wonky Houston thing going. So Jayshawn Tate ends up getting ruled out, and we're going to have a game time decision, which, you know, doesn't really mean anything. We're still just waiting on the same question for Jabari Smith here. If we lose Jabari Smith, Lee, like, what the hell do we do with Houston? Because, like, these prices have started to come up on Brooks, Thompson. I mean, even Jalen Green is sitting there too. But, like, outside of Şengün, Van Fleet, what else do we want to be jamming there?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you see is, Jabari Smith coming out. He's like 35, 36 minutes. You just give Landale backup center minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then he'll get like 13 or so. So you're only really redistributing like 20, 24 minutes or something like that. You can go back to the well with Cam Whitmore and disappoint yourself. I think it's probably not the move. Amen Thompson, I'm interested in again. Like, I would probably get him up into the high 20s at that point. And he's kind of like the only person that would become somebody that I would be like, hey, maybe this is it. I don't think Dylan Brooks goes back to Dylan Brooks of last game because there are people there that prevent him from shooting the ball all the time. So I think he goes back to regular Dylan Brooks, which is just like angry and playing defense. So yeah, I don't think it's too crazy. Maybe just a little bit Amen Thompson, and then everyone else gets like slightly better.
Yeah, that's kind of the main guy that I was looking at. So wanted to get your thoughts on him there. Yet another spot that we can swap into more stuff, hoping that news comes out after that 7 p.m. lock and everybody plays Monty Morris. That would be enjoyable. That's it.
Anything else you want to add there for yourself, Eric?
No, I just like asking Lee stuff, and everybody in chat wanted Lee too because he's awesome.
I agree. And once again, if you guys want more access to Lee, sign up for one of the Stokastic packages and check us out in Discord throughout the night. Yes, so we did get the news that Eric had just mentioned. Jayshawn Tate is out, which not as quite important as what's going on with the potential Jabari Smith piece, which, by the way, more reason that you kind of want to backload your lineups. You want to be too exposed to this first game on the slate. It's not to say the guys look bad right now, but some of these value options, I think there's going to be better guys that open up later. So Charlotte, outside of LaMelo Ball, is there anybody you feel like you absolutely need to have in your lineups?
I like Miles Bridges. I think working through it, he's pretty clearly one of the better like mid 7K guys on this slate. I mean, we just had a million of them go completely nuclear last slate, or what, 2 nights ago it was, where you had every 7K power forward, Jaren Jackson Jr. is stealing the ball from everybody in a first quarter, and Karl Anthony Towns goes for 44 real points in a first half. You have lots of those like mid-range power forwards that I think you can mix and match, and he's just another one of them here with Wembanyama, with Karl Anthony Towns. I think it's another one of those slates where you can kind of get some of those guys through the cracks. And also, like, we look at the positions for Dallas that we really want to be getting to. If there's no Luka, Kyrie, I mean, everything's on the table, but like shooting guard, small forward for Tim Hardaway Jr., for Derrick Jones Jr., for Josh Green, small forward, power forward, for Jaden Hardy, point guard, has the shooting guard eligibility. We'd still be able to play a lot of the LaMelo Ball, and then a lot of like power forward, because there isn't like a power forward or center that it becomes like an absolute jam spot here from Dallas. So I'm happier to sneak some more of those guys into lineups just because of the positionality, which will also lead into the nuke of the night, because positionally in that game, there's a power forward who seems pretty interesting to get to.
Oh, what's your favorite position?
I don't know. I don't reveal my secrets.
All
you
right.
know, though.
You know what? Let's do it. We got some super chats that are building up. I want to be able to hit on all those, but first, let's do the nuke of the night. And by the way, Lee, you're going to be doing a nuke of the night tonight as well. So get ready for that. But Jordan, play the animation. Let's blow Eric's dick off.
Let's go. Like excited for it now. So weird. Whee! Just at my place of employment.
Yeah, there it is. Obliterated. He has been disintegrated into pieces. Eric, what's the nuke of the night? What are you looking at today? Who is the guy that we're going to look to play in tournaments?
So I had talked a couple slates ago. I mean, obviously, this guy is a hero of mine because he kept the game from going to overtime against the Chicago Bulls 2 nights ago. I was sweating balls watching Kobe White almost get a triple-double there, because then everybody bypasses that train that I was part of to be able to get that 30K W. But I love the game environment potential that we have here for Dallas on one side. So why not bring a stud in Kevin Durant on the other side, who has started to do the usage thing that I was expecting, playing alongside Beal and Booker. Now when the three share the floor this season, Beal is under a 20% usage, has been more of a corner guy, letting Kevin Durant go out there and cook. And Devin Booker still leads between the three of them in terms of usage, sharing the floor together, over 700-minute sample size for him and Booker on the floor together. And Booker has been shooting more. I think he's okay to get to him and Luka have their little feud and their little thing. It's adorable. But Kevin Durant, we want to be spending up for some of these power forwards, because those aren't really the positions where I think we're going to be swapping most of our lineups into. You look at Dallas, I just listed off how many shooting guards and small forward and point guard. Obviously, Jaden Hardy would be there as well. We have Atlanta with point guard, shooting guard, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic. But I don't think many people are going to be preloading their lineups with expensive guys at power forward. And so Kevin Durant, to preload him, a 1.35 DraftKings points per minute player who has started to see that usage that we were hoping for, has started to acclimate, playing 40 minutes a night in some of these competitive spots, still only a 2.5 point favorite here on the road, which again, you read the tea leaves, that can move to 5 if you miss one of the two or both of Luka and Kyrie. But that's still, for all intents and purposes, not crazy to think you could still get 38, 40 minutes out of Kevin Durant. Love getting to him as a contrarian upside play. And think about how many people are going to be playing those mid 7K guys that I just described, between Bridges, between Wembanyama. I mean, there's a dearth of those guys. So go a little bit more expensive, use that salary. Kevin Durant, 6% ownership, nuke of the night.
All right, so I am going to open my magical nuke box for this. I haven't been able to figure out exactly what it is that DraftKings sent in the mail.
They sent you a jigsaw puzzle. That's.
I think it's a nuclear weapon. So with that in mind, I think that it makes sense here because it's an actual nuke. It could explode at any moment here, but it also reveals the secrets of the slate. And inside it, it says that LaMelo Ball is the most underowned player on the entire slate.
Love it.
So no matter what it is that ends up happening with value later in the day, it doesn't impact how I view LaMelo Ball. In fact, the more players that get rolled out later in the day, it would only make it easier to end up getting to LaMelo Ball. So nuke of the night for me is LaMelo. Usage rate, super high, 35% with Terry Rozier off the court this year. Great matchup against the Detroit Pistons. And also, the minutes have been good for LaMelo as well. So my nuke of the night is going to be LaMelo Ball. I cannot believe that he's only projected for 10% ownership on DraftKings. FanDuel a little more popular, 25%, still not enough. Hammer LaMelo Ball. He is the most under-owned player on the slate, in my opinion. Lee, do you have a nuke of the night for us today? who is it that you like targeting in tournaments?
Yeah, this is somebody that I'm probably going to have. It's more of maybe a DraftKings play, but I'll probably still have some on FanDuel. That's Fred VanVleet against the terrible Portland. Just looks pretty good overall. You got some people that are questionable. Jabari Smith could be out. They'll probably need Fred VanVleet to be running things out there. So that's just kind of my take on it.
All right, so
I love it. Concise, my guy. Thank you for being you and not Greg.
And as Emac has said in the chat, it is a Fred Van Elite. So Emac, who's been the original Fred VanVleet fan, because, Emac's been doing those tournaments that they were called the Fred Van Elite Fan Club. I forget exactly, it was something along those lines.
In 1844, there was a man who had a dream, the Fred Van Elite contest.
It started when Fred VanVleet, I believe, was in high school, and Emac was playing DFS contests around there. But whatever it is, Emac's been building lineups with Fred VanVleet since like his rookie year. So big fan of Fred VanVleet is Emac. Now let's start answering some of your guys' questions. Let's see what we have in the super chats and then as well as Discord. I know that we had some of these come in, but we had a lot of talking points that I wanted to get to at the top of the show. And most importantly, let people know how I'm building my lineups and backloading them for all the news that's on the slate. And by the way, we got the starters for the Timberwolves: Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. So everything as expected. Phil Senzig, who puts it in the basket, Eric? Lotion play of the night.
Put it on your skin. Let's see.
You're mixing your impressions together.
Yeah, I know. I had some stuff going through my mind trying to come up with something that isn't Kevin Durant, because for all intents and purposes, he's the lotion play / nuke of the night. But I will throw in. Nobody really wants to play SGA today because it's a back-to-back. 13.5% ownership for a 10-1 SGA. I think that seems pretty fun. That feels pretty lotiony, if you ask me.
Okay. Let's see. Who puts the lotion in the basket?
Put it on your skin.
Here's somebody from the early games that I am willing to get to, Eric. And I think you're going to like this guy. Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh,
I know
a
lot more people are playing Bogdanovic.
So exotic.
Of the players that I'm still good with getting to exposure to from the first couple games of the slate, Bojan Bogdanovic. There's no Cade Cunningham for Detroit. I know his minutes were super stupid last game. Incredibly. He only played 22 minutes last game. He asked the coach to not put him back in. I don't know what that means for his playing time going forward, right? It's really hard to say. His reasoning being is like, hey, the young guys are playing well. Let them finish out the game. I'm going to go hit the showers early. Does that happen again today? Possibly, but I don't think so. But here's what it doesn't change. It doesn't change his ceiling. Does it lower his floor? Potentially. Does he? It's very live that maybe he only plays 22 minutes again. His ceiling remains unchanged, though. So Bojan Bogdanovic, who I do expect to be taking a ton of shots for the Detroit Pistons tonight in a game without Cade Cunningham. Cade was expected to play, then gets ruled out, and he's still not 100%. So Bogdanovic, I can't believe you didn't go with your guy.
I'm sorry. I was too busy reacting to news, and we got Luke Kennard out. So somebody said wonderful. Every time I see the word wonderful, does anybody have the Green Day Greatest Hits album where they do like the little read-in intro where it's like, Billy Joe, it certainly is exciting to meet you here at the recording studio after we just made our very first record. How does it feel? Wonderful.
I have no clue what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, never mind. Good talk.
I have no clue. Jordan, weigh in because Lee's busy updating projections. Do you have any clue what Eric's talking about?
I think he's
like 12. No.
He made it up for sure. There's no way.
No, I did. I just quoted it off the top of my head. That's not a lie. Somebody just play the Greatest Hits album right now. We don't have the rights, so I don't think we should.
Let's see. Yeah, nobody knows what the hell you're talking about in chat, Eric.
It's the Green Day intro.
Yeah, people are just like Mike Muscala talking. Just talk about Mike Muscala. But let's hit on this. Luke Kennard is out, and this was already a very shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies team. This team is on a quest to. They're not going to compete for championships this year, but whatever the record is for longest injury report, they're looking to set that record at some point this year because we now have for this team anybody with a pulse. Short of Jaren Jackson Jr., kind of out at this point. We've got Marcus Smart out, Luke Kennard out, Derrick Rose out, John Moran out, Desmond Bane out, Brandon Clark out, Jake LaRavia out, Santi Aldama out, Steven Adams out. They have a legit entire rotation of a playoff team on the injury report for today. As far as players who are available, we've got Zaire Williams, John Conchar, David Roddy, GG Jackson. If you guys feel good enough to go back to him, I was actually kind of already liking him a little bit as a contrarian option. Jacob Gilliard probably has to play minutes now. Xavier Tillman, Vince Williams Jr., Jaren Jackson Jr. They got more guys on the injury report than guys they have healthy, and a lot of the guys they have healthy are like NPC type players here, Eric. What are we doing with the Memphis Grizzlies with Luke Kennard out of the mix?
We're playing Big Thotty Roddy for sure. And now John Conchar jumps up the board for me at 4K. Probably just continues to start there. Vince Williams as well, 6,500. He's just playing so many minutes. They're just having him out on the floor for eternal minutes, 35, 38 in some spots. Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. It's a terrible, no good, very bad matchup. But specifically the two pieces of value being Roddy and Conchar, I don't see how I don't play some of those guys. It just feels like one of those spots we're going to get them in the starting lineup, or, you know, you're for sure going to get Conchar in the starting lineup. It's going to be disturbing how much I get two of those guys.
So my big problem here is that I don't love other people handling the ball, so I keep going back to Gilliard, and it's like,
oh no,
ooh, it's pretty ugly. Like,
yeah,
you got to think he's probably going to be doing like high 20s, right? He might even start, and they might.
Yeah, I was going to say, he played 32 minutes and 34 minutes starting here, and Luke Kennard had been, for all intents and purposes, the quote-unquote point guard, even though it was Jaren Jackson Jr. bringing down the ball for Memphis the last couple games. If anybody watched those games, I hate myself, so I watched a lot of Memphis basketball, and Jaren Jackson Jr. has been playing point. Luke Kennard goes in the corner and just sits there. Maybe they bring Gilliard out there, but I think for me, if Gilliard isn't starting, I'm not going to probably be doing a crazy amount, but do you think he plays like mid-20s minutes no matter what?
Like, I think his floor is probably like 22 or something like that.
Okay, well then that sucks, because then we are going to probably get to him. But hey, 22 is more than 18 for Monty Morris, and it's a half hour extra to build and hopefully have more exposure to Mr. Hardy and react to that news. So I kind of don't hate it anywhere else. But yeah, I mean, what do you assume the starting lineup's going to be?
I actually think they're just gonna go like Gilliard, Conchar, Vince Williams, Jaren Jackson, Tillman, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, then that would make sense. I mean, Gilliard starting, or they'll have Big
They could just
Roddy
do
come out there.
both Williams together, too, and then
Yeah.
keep Roddy off the bench, or they could do Roddy, and then just let Vince Williams handle the ball with Jaren Jackson. So like they could choose any of those guys, but everyone's gonna have to get at least 25 minutes. That's just the way the math works.
Yeah, that's Gregory Jackson too, who I thought, you know, at 1 or 2% I would get a couple of shares of too, because he's a fantasy point per minute guy, but I don't think this really like elevates his minutes any, which is the part that sucks.
So Gilliard has started 9 games now this year. I think they kind of have to start Gilliard. I mean, you don't ever have to start a balding 5'6" point guard, but I do kind of think they have to start Jacob Gilliard when you look at the players who are available. It's a lineup that makes the most sense to me. So I do think that Gilliard starts alongside John Conchar in the backcourt. Then you got Vince Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., Xavier Tillman. That's what I expect the starting 5 to be. Could they go elsewhere? Potentially. We'll end up seeing that shortly.
Yeah.
But
so I just put Gilliard in for 30 minutes and then Conchar 29. I mean, Roddy's going to play a lot of minutes now. Like, that's the other thing. We had him at 29 and a half. He could play 32, 33. Like, this is just a guy that I find pretty unavoidable on this slate.
And they have Scottie Pippen Jr. active for tonight as well, too, don't they, Lee?
I'll have to double check that.
Is his mom going to be with Michael Jordan Jr. at the game? That'd be awesome.
If I'm not mistaken, well, no. He's the one. Isn't he the one who's dating Scottie Pippen? Or no, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay,
Larsa Pippen
is
dating Jordan. I got it right the first time. Ha!
Yeah, I've got my dumb relationships back.
Yeah. Oh, it's Marcus Jordan? Oh, what a G. That guy's awesome. Okay. Did he play at Illinois? He's the one who played at Illinois. Well, played. He just was on the roster.
I thought Scottie Pippen's active tonight. Grizzlies injured.
I will tell you in 2 seconds. I can find it. I thought
they brought him up from the G League.
He is active, yes.
Okay, yeah. So Scottie Pippen's another guy who can play some backcourt minutes, but I don't know. Is he somebody, Lee, if we assume that Scottie Pippen is active tonight, he's going to play minutes, isn't he?
Yeah, but probably not more like than 10 or something like that. But enough to like make people a little bit dicey.
Yeah, that's also it's not that I would play. Actually, I'm not even sure if Scottie Pippen's in the pricing on DraftKings or FanDuel.
He
was
is
something I considered earlier.
He is,
But his inclusion in the rotation doesn't matter for him, but it matters for the floors of guys like Jacob Gilyard or potentially for David Roddy, where if you're going to give minutes to Scottie Pippen, well, they're coming from somebody else. So let's go and answer these questions that have been piling up that we've been neglecting because of all the news that's come out on the slate, Eric. So let's go through all of these super chats now. And we have Ryan Renebaum left us a super chat. There is no question included. So let me see if there is a question that he threw into YouTube chat, which he didn't. If you have a question, Ryan, just throw it into YouTube chat. I'll be looking for it and answering it. But thank you for the super chat, for just leaving us some money. Eric Herman is asking us top contrarian plays by position on DK. And then he also says, enjoy your fan mail. Top contrarian plays by position. I don't know that I have one for each individual, but let's go front court and backcourt. For me, in the backcourt, it's LaMelo Ball.
He's your highest owned at point guard?
No, he asked who's our favorite contrarian plays.
Oh, favorite contrarian play at each one. Okay. Jaden Hardy.
And in the front court for a favorite contrarian play.
Jaren Jackson Jr. probably now.
Yeah, Triple J is one that's viable. I'm going to go with Gregory Jackson now. I don't know what the updated ownership is, so I'm kind of making some assumptions. But Gregory Jackson, who has done nothing but mean things to me over the last couple of weeks, this could be the day that he finally gets the extend minutes. And people aren't playing Gregory Jackson anymore, at least per our last ownership projection update. So Gregory Jackson for me in the front court.
I want to get to know you.
Wants to know favorite options for DK tiers. Tier 1 for me, it is, this is actually tricky as fuck to answer because of the injury report situation.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with Giannis in tier 1 because I think Luka playing is very dicey. However, if Luka's ruled in and Kyrie is out, you very clearly want to be on Luka there.
So just have some like dead lineups and reservation. Like you're going to lose a lot of nights you play DFS anyway. So like go ahead and take the 10% guy that could not play in that afternoon. Like there's nobody coming up after him in tiers in that tier.
There is not. Nope.
That is dicey. Let me just tell you. That is dicey.
So it's either Luka or if you play Luka and he ended up being a game time decision, he's ruled out. There's nobody to swap to. Nobody to swap to in that scenario. So tier 1, I'm going to go, if you want to be safe, Giannis. If you want to roll the dice, Luka. Tier 2, SGA. Tier 3, that is Anthony Edwards for me. Tier 4, Wemby. Tier 5, Miles Bridges. Tier 6, that is going to be Jalen Johnson with Trae Young out. Thank you very much for the super chat, Ace of Spade. Jowlin Verse wants to know best plays for a FanDuel at each position. Do you have FanDuel lineups built, Eric, or just...
I made one lineup on FanDuel for today for the people, so I can tell you what it is. Yeah.
LaMelo Ball for me at point guard.
It is SGA for me at point guard.
Shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. Small forward, David Roddy.
David Roddy.
Power forward also would be David Roddy. So I'll say John Conchar, small forward, and David Roddy.
Yep, Conchar. I'm playing 3 Memphis guys. Yep.
And then center, that is going to be another Memphis guy in Xavier Tillman.
Jaren Jackson Jr. for me.
Malevolent Elephant is asking any love for Damian Jones tonight with no Tristan Thompson because of his HGH suspension. So earlier in the day, I was getting to a good amount of Damian Jones as a contrarian option. It just kind of falls by the wayside at this point in the slate with the amount of players that have since been ruled out and the other value that's opened up. Was somebody who earlier in the day I was building lineups for the strategy show. He was like 0.1% projected ownership, maybe even 1%. And I was getting to like 20% of Damian Jones when he was that low owned, but not as necessary now. Is he somebody you're finding yourself getting to?
No, Dame Jones. He's great. Yeah, when he gets on a floor, he can do things, but there are times that he doesn't get on a floor and then doesn't do things. Chargers just hired Jim Harbaugh too, so that's wild.
Next super chat, Chris Logan is asking us best picks for DK tiers. We just hit on tiers, so covered that. Thank you for the super chat though, Chris. Chris Albers, another Chris, wants to know favorite center of the night. And then he also says that Lee has to answer. All right, so for me, my favorite center overall, let's see, center exposures. I've got too many tabs open right now. Favorite overall center is Wemby for me.
Favorite overall center. It's got to be Wemby, I'm assuming, but let me check. Nope, Şengün for me.
Okay. How about for you, Lee? Favorite overall center?
Şengün.
All
Whatever.
right. And then Zachary Pinnell is asking us, is Brandon Miller a decent pivot off of Bogdanovich? No. I've been seeing a lot of questions about Brandon Miller. I get it because Terry Rozier's out, but Brandon Miller is only scoring 0.82 fantasy points per minute with Terry Rozier off the court. He's been priced up as well. There's so much value on the slate that he's somebody who I do not like prioritizing.
Somebody asked me earlier there. I got him at 23.5 minus 105 for PRA today. He's at 24.5, like minus 128 now, best number. It's all about the number. It's not that I don't like him now. It's just that the market adjusted to him. So from a betting perspective, I liked getting to Miller early. I do not really like getting to him all that much. Shooting guard, small forwards, okay. I have a couple shares of him, but like nothing crazy. He's just a dude on this slate.
Melissa Harvey says EMAC played DFS when the results came by Pony Express.
Oh, yeah. Once if by land, two if by GPP swapping.
Yeah, EMAC back in the day. People don't know how involved he was in the Black Sox scandal, but he's got some history. James Magruder says that he just bought the tools. How do I join Discord? Yes. So it's going to be hard. Jordan, can you send the link? Could you Okay, cool.
What a guy.
Cool.
What a guy.
I was going to say, it's hard for me to do it from here, but Jordan's got you covered. Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, we always appreciate you. And then James Magruder also left us a question, and he wants to know our best plays at each position. So my lineups are being updated for one final time here, but if we're going through each position, I'm going to say, DeJounte Murray at point guard, John Conchar at shooting guard, small forward, Roddy, power forward, Wemby, center, Şengün.
Those all sound identical to me.
And now we've got Sunflower asking us for a DK GPP, hot body David Roddy and DeJounte Murray or Jalen Johnson. And
Luka available to play.
Sorry, what was that?
Luka available to play.
Oh, Luka in.
So I got to change a lot of shit.
By the way, Luka in tiers, guys. Go play Luka in tiers.
Yep.
Also, I'm going to give an ROI boost to Luka right now.
Same.
Because I think there's a pretty good chance that, let's see, is there more news? Do we have the Kyrie update?
Nope. But I'm assuming that he is out. We got XM playing. We got Seth Curry available to play. And Kyrie game time decision.
I'm going to do an ROI boost to Luka right now, just so I have more lineups with him.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought it was like more important. Go. I am going to have to change a lot because I was preloading some Hardy and some lineups. That is the dangerous game you play with NBA DFS. Hey, at least it broke 13 minutes before the slate started as opposed to 3 minutes before the slate started, because now I at least have time to do something about it.
And Sunflower's super chat. If I didn't, or if you weren't able to hear it, David Roddy and DeJounte Murray is my preferred side of that. Now let's go into Discord and see what questions that we are getting from there. And what are you doing to change your lineups with Luka now confirmed in?
I'm going to be getting to a lot of Amin Thompson. I'm kind of just preloading some stuff there. And I'm just swapping around some stuff just because I was boosting Jaden Hardy pretty hard. I think Jacob Gilyard's more interesting now that piece is off the board for what it's worth too. After we had talked through that, $3,400 does a lot to be able to get to some of these high ceiling guys. And I'm with you. I want to give a boost to Luka. But I think I also want to take SGA for a little bit of a ride. I want to get to a little bit more of Giannis. I mean, those are your 3 super ceilings that kind of exist. You only have 3 10K guys to get to on this slate. So Jacob Gilyard is probably my path. Amin Thompson, hoping that news breaks away from Jabari Smith. I think he would be really, really low owned relative to what he would be if that news was something we knew before lock. So I think that is going to be kind of the main 2 things I'm doing, is just boosting more Gilyard and just having him replace a lot of my Hardy ownership.
Yeah, I'm lowering my exposure just really quickly to a bunch of guys in the first game on the slate, other than like LaMelo. Still need him, but I mean, it was something we were already talking about before, but just as I'm updating lineups, just making sure that is still the case, that I don't have very much exposure to this first game or first couple of games on the slate because of the amount of value that I think could be opening up later. And Dante Exum will play off the bench. Kapanikella wants to know our favorite single entry play today. That is still LaMelo for me.
Still LaMelo. If Jabari Smith plays, he's a phenomenal tournament play. I'm just throwing that in there too as I'm updating everything.
Miami High Life says, someone help me out. I'm new to the Sims. What's the best way to increase a player's exposure? If you already have your lineups up, go to the ROI boosts, and then any player you want more of, give them the plus. Anybody you want less of, give them the minus. And then what you do is unselect your top 150 lineups, refavor your top 150. That's the best way to manipulate your exposures to individual players. CJ Cashing says, thoughts on a min salary Monty Morris? That is going to be a no for me at this point.
So no from me, dog. 0%.
And once again, it's not because there isn't a chance he's going to have a good points per dollar game. It's because of the opportunity cost of not being able to late swap onto some better values that could open up later. Next question is coming to us from Eric M. Eric wants to know, well, first he says, congrats on your big win, Eric. And then he wants to know, who's our favorite value play for single entry? Favorite value play for single entry? That's Conchar for me.
I'm gonna go Gilliard now. I'm Lee's got me getting Gilly for Gilliard.
Gilly for Gill. What does that mean?
I don't know, but it's provocative. Made you think.
No,
made you double take. It's interesting.
All right, if you say so.
It's an interesting word phrasing.
Next
from the guy who brings you Lindy's leans, likes, and locks. It shouldn't be that surprising.
And go check out Eric's stuff over on the OddsShopper Discord channel, or sign up for OddsShopper. You can use the promo code Greg or the promo code Lindy to get yourself 20% off, because you are going to get bets from Eric and myself. And then in addition, you get access to the Plus EV sports betting model available over at OddsShopper. So sign up using the link below and the promo code Greg or the promo code Lindy to get yourself 20% off. A super chat from Pierre wants to know top plays on the 2-game after slate hour on FanDuel. Wemby and let me see which one's the after hour.
I mean, it's Atlanta, Sacramento. It's the OKC San Antonio one.
Okay,
I mean, SGA, Wemby. Yeah, there you go. Bogdanovich just smashed Sadiq Bey for value. Yeah, there's some good plays.
Next question is from Mr. Coolcam. Favorite players at each position on FanDuel. We did touch on that before, but I'll read it off again. Point guard for me, LaMelo Ball. Shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. Small forward, John Conchar. Power forward, David Roddy. And then center for me, Alperen Şengün. Or you go with Xavier Tillman there as well. I'm getting them fairly equally right now. And then JEW wants to know, what players are we playing early and what players are you wanting to play that you would hold spots for on both slates? So what kind of final alterations have you made to your lineups for the early game and keeping the flexibility open for later starting players?
Yeah, so I ended up playing quite a bit of Miles Bridges. I ended up playing a little bit more than I would have liked. I'm playing LaMelo Ball. We talked about him multiple times here, although Luka is cutting into some of that for me. I have Anthony Edwards. I'm a little bit more interested in him than it sounds like you are. I am also, let me double check this.
Hey, can I just interrupt really quick for the Sims users? Hey, Vegas just came in on PJ Washington. I was about 5% high, so you might want to ROI boost PJ Washington down if you're getting him.
Thank you. I love that. I wasn't getting him, I don't think. Let me see here. Nope, I wasn't. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's just kind of getting to that game after getting to a lot more Memphis, kind of waiting for that starting lineup there. We've seen Tillman start, not start. I assume that he starts today. I think everybody does. Yeah, and then obviously going to be preloading a lot more Amin Thompson than the field is right now. I have gobs of him.
I did a positive ROI boost to Luka, and that got me to around 30% of him. That's the easiest way to create flexibility for yourself, because Luka being the most expensive player on the slate, it's going to be much easier to swap off Luka than to swap onto Luka. So that was one thing that I did as well here. Next question is coming to us from Jets World. Last man in, John Conchar, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I prefer Conchar.
Conchar for sure.
James Magruder left us a super chat. $3,800 or less for the forward position, Eric.
3,400?
3,800 or less.
Oh, 3,800. Okay. We can make that work. Probably Zaire Williams, just off the top of my head, but let's see. So I'm finishing it up. Roddy's more expensive. Where did Zaire go? Yep, Zaire Williams for me.
Okay. I am going to agree with Eric while I finish uploading my lineups here. I mean, there's so much value to be had on Memphis that really anybody you can make a pretty strong case for if they're cheap on Memphis at this point. Next question that we have here is from the Black Mamba 8724. He wants to know, can we talk about the other Charlotte pieces on DK? I'm really not getting too much from Charlotte outside of LaMelo.
Yep, same.
And the next question, Sniffs.
No, I corrected Miles Bridges. I have quite a bit of.
I have Bridges and I have 10% of Bridges. So some lineups, but nothing all that.
I have 20.
Sniffs1234 says it seems like the FanDuel prices aren't that great for Dallas. Would you still make spots for late swap? Yes, because if Kyrie Irving does not play today, you want to play Luka Doncic.
Yes, you do. You want Luka.
Abby Schreier has left us a super chat, said that he came in 4th out of 1,984 entries on Sunday on FanDuel contest. So Abby, congrats. Love to see people winning some money playing DFS using our advice and tools, or if you're just somebody who watches the shows and happens to win money. Always like to see you guys win. Eric M, favorite center for $5,100 or less on DK. Let's see, $5,100 or less at center. 5,100. Man, these options suck.
They're not great.
I'm going to say Okongwu, and that's just going to give you more flexibility to swap onto other guys.
Correct. That's a good point.
Dominic Cubano, 25. Are we in favor of excluding all of Nick Smith, Cody Martin, Monty Morris on Charlotte, given the Hardy potential? So I have, across 150 lineups, I don't have 0% of these guys, but all right. So Nick Smith is, so I don't have any exposure to Nick Smith. Cody Martin, I have in 6% of lineups. And then Monty Morris, I have in 1% of lineups. So I didn't like go in and say I can't play these guys, but I did definitely give them significant ROI downgrades to give myself more flexibility. Next question here. R. Gravy wants to know thoughts on VW Jr. I assume he means Vince Williams Jr. on DK. Good option for Memphis. There are so many guys that are out for that team. He is going to have to take shots when he's on the court. He's going to have to play bigger minutes. Not my favorite value play on the team because he's been priced up, but he's certainly in play. And then he wants to know best forward for 3,100 or less on DK. 3,100 or less of forward.
There's not going to be probably anybody that makes any sense. I'm uploading my lineups now, and then I'll be able to take a better look at that. 3,100.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to pick somebody at that price range, the answer is Matisse Thybulle, and I don't like Matisse Thybulle, but that's just the options that are available. It's what we have to work with. Work
with me, people. Work with me.
Let's see what we have for more questions. King Yusuf, do I like Okongwu? Yes, I have exposure to Onyeka Okongwu. It's likely to go down if more players get ruled out, but I have him in 20% of my lineups right now. Yep. Melissa H wants to know how much Gilliard is too much. Depends on what the starting lineup is. I assume he starts. If that's the case, he's a good value play. If he comes off the bench, I like him less. But as of right now, I think Gilliard certainly looks like a strong value option to get to.
Banger.
Marquee Sports, Cody Martin or Josh Green? Josh Green.
Yep.
Jag 260, Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Eamon Thompson versus Cody Martin and Josh Green. I'll say Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Eamon Thompson.
Oh, he said 3,800 for it was for forward, not guard, from when he asked me before. 3,800 guard. Julian Champagny. There you go. He's small forward eligible. Champagne in the membrane.
You answered the wrong position.
Yeah, I did, because I'm a dum-dum. He's got a minute. There you go, Julian Champagny.
You made him leave another super chat for that too, Eric.
I did, but that was a jerk thing. But I was going to go back and double check because I thought I heard that you maybe said that correctly. And now you're cutting into other people's super chats as well.
No, keep going. Says suggestion to look for after lock to run the swap. Suggestion to look for after. Yeah. So I assume you mean news to look for, which is going to be starting lineup for the Memphis Grizzlies. That's going to be big. Is Kyrie Irving in or out? That's going to be big. Jabari Smith Jr., is he going to be out? That's going to matter. Trey Jones, whether he plays or not, that also could open up value in the backcourt for the San Antonio Spurs. So those are the big ones that I think you need to be looking out for the most. Have love, any love for Nick Smith Jr. with Rozier gone? No, because I don't like the lack of flexibility that gives me for my lineups. Jets World, if Trey Jones is out, Wesley or Gilliard on DK. Gilliard, assuming he starts.
Yep.
And then JEW, skip Nickeil Alexander-Walker for single entry. If he's fine to play in single entry, I'm way underweight to the field to him in large field tournaments, hoping for better options via late spot.
Mm-hmm. Trey Jones also being ruled out would definitely change a couple of things for me. Might be able to get Blake Wesley in our lives, which would never be the most enthusiastic thing, but there you are.
And then we got a question from Stan0302 about Isaiah Stewart, but he asked the question after that game had already locked because he just asked it. Thoughts on Isaiah Stewart? I didn't play him.
Didn't play him.
I don't think. Let me see. I'll double check. Did I have any lineups with him?
Do it.
I have 1 out of 150 with Isaiah Stewart. So I got
0 out of 40.
Guys, that is going to do it for us. If you've not done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys very much for watching. You're going to sign up for any of the packages we have at Stokastic.com. Use the links that we have below. I'm going to be hanging out in Discord. Lee's going to be hanging out in Discord. This is going to be a great slate for late swapping. We'll keep you guys updated on anything that changes with our lineups as we go and get more news. So see you guys in Discord. Peace out. Have a great night.
Gilliard is starting. What?
Let's fucking go. Let's go, daddy. 80.